I always thought he saw me as a little girl until the night he closed that door behind me. Please don't forget to subscribe and comment. I never thought the way he looked at me would change. Ever since I was young, Everett Carter had been in and out of our lives. He was my father's best friend from college, the tall, quiet man with the deep voice, calloused hands, and steel blue eyes that always seemed to be watching over us like some silent guardian. He'd helped fix our roof once, and I remember sitting on the porch watching the way he moved, strong, capable, commanding. But I was just a little girl back then, barefoot, wide-eyed, invisible in that way kids are to grown men. At least I thought I was. But I'm not that girl anymore. I'm 23 now. And the man who once ruffled my hair and brought over tools and cigarettes for my dad, well, he was staying in our guest room for the summer. After his divorce, Dad offered him a place to regroup, and Everett accepted. The day he arrived, I had just come home from a jog. I wasn't expecting anyone. I was in a thin tank top, shorts sticking to my skin from the heat. I pulled my earbuds out as I stepped through the front door and nearly bumped into him. "Addie," he said in that low gravel voice. "Wow, you've grown up." I froze. For a second, I forgot how to breathe. He looked different too, older, of course, but stronger. His jaw was dusted with salt and pepper scruff. His shirt clung to the shape of his chest. And his eyes, they weren't looking at me like I was a kid anymore. He cleared his throat and stepped aside. "Didn't mean to startle you." I smiled awkwardly, my heart thudding louder than it should have. "No, it's okay. I just didn't know you were coming today." He nodded. "I figured I'd surprise your dad." And so began the summer I never saw coming. At first, it was normal, or at least I pretended it was. He stayed in a room across the hall from mine. We'd pass in the hallway, exchange polite smiles, make small talk in the kitchen. But late at night, I'd lie in bed thinking about the way his eyes lingered, about how he always seemed to be watching me when he thought I wasn't looking, about the low timbre of his voice that somehow found its way into my dreams. One evening, I came home from a date that didn't go well. I was still in my dress, red, too tight, too low, too much, and as I stepped through the door, Everett was sitting on the couch with a glass of something dark in his hand. His eyes met mine. "Home early," he said. I shrugged, kicking off my heels. Not really my type. He stared at me for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Smart girl." I went to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and when I turned around, he was standing in the doorway, watching me. The tension was thick, not loud, not obvious, but the kind that settles in your bones. "You look beautiful, Addie," he said quietly. I didn't answer right away. I just stared at him, my fingers tightening around the glass. My voice came out softer than I expected. "You've known me since I was 6. He took a step forward. "I know. So, why do you look at me like that now?" Another step. Closer. And then another. He was standing right in front of me. "Because I don't see that little girl anymore," he said. "And I haven't in a long time." My breath caught. I wanted to move. To back away. To say something clever, something safe. But then he leaned in, just enough for me to feel his breath on my cheek. "Say something," he murmured. I thought you still saw me as a child." His hand rose, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear. "Not even close." He turned and walked away. I stood frozen in that kitchen, heart pounding, pulse racing, wondering what I had just let happen. What was happening? Was this real? The next few days were worse or better, depending how you look at it. He didn't avoid me, but he didn't seek me out either. He was distant but burning. His silence said more than words ever could. I wore softer dresses, left my bedroom door open longer, sat a little closer at the dinner table, and every time our fingers brushed, something sparked. Until the night, everything changed. It was late. The house was quiet. My parents had gone to visit family out of town, and I was left alone with Everett. He'd just showered. I could smell the warmth of soap and something masculine lingering in the hallway. I was wearing an oversized shirt that barely reached my thighs. I wasn't thinking straight, or maybe I was. I stepped out to get water and saw him at the end of the hallway. Our eyes locked. Neither of us spoke. Then he turned and walked into his room, and without looking back, he closed the door. I stood there, breathless. The message wasn't lost on me. It wasn't loud, but it was deafening. My feet moved before I could second guess. I crossed the hallway slowly, every step echoing louder than it should have. My hand hovered at the doorknob. I paused. My heart was in my throat, but I knocked. Once. And the door opened almost instantly. He was shirtless, his eyes intense, his jaw clenched. He stepped aside, silently, letting me in. And I stepped into the room of the man I thought would always see me as a girl, only to realize that night I had never been more of a woman in his eyes. We didn't speak. There was no need. The way his hand found the small of my back, the way his eyes drank me in, it was all the conversation we needed. Everything else that happened that night will stay behind that closed door, just like it stayed sealed in my memory ever since. The next morning, I woke up before him. The sunlight fell across his chest, rising and falling with every breath. I should have felt guilty. I should have tiptoed away. But I didn't. Because for once, I felt seen. Not as a child. Not as someone's daughter. But as me. When he finally opened his eyes, he looked at me the way every woman dreams of being looked at. And that's when I knew the door he closed wasn't just to the hallway. It was to the past. And we were finally ready to step into something we never dared name before.